This is a story about a teacher who was interested in studying why students get certain grades in math. Okay? So, what we are looking at is a room. And let's say that this room represents sort of a conceptual space of 3 dimensions in which variables can exist. Okay? So, this teacher is interested in math grades, and this is one variable. So this variable of math grade, which is A, B, C, D, or F, exists in this space. Now this teacher wanted to do a research project on how reading ability relates to math grades. Okay? So in order to represent that, okay, she went ahead and just drew a line between reading ability and math grades. And that line represented to her that there might be a connection. But the thing is that she went and talked to some of her colleagues, and they said, you know, there are other variables. There's parental involvement. There's amount of time that students study. Okay? So she got really confused because now she was in a situation where not just her variable, but other variables seemed to have a perceived impact on math grades. Now the thing is that all of these variables plus many, many more that we could list were really coming from the teacher's lens. Okay? This is what the teachers saw as what relates to math grades. But let's say she went and talked to, I don't know, a psychologist. Well, her school psychologist might say that cognitive ability is a really important factor in how students do in mathematics, because mathematics requires a certain amount of cognitive ability. The psychologist might say, you know, if this student is getting good reinforcement, positive reinforcement, and even negative reinforcement when you take away something undesired, this might affect the student's math grade. And, you know, the psychologist also said self-efficacy or confidence in math. If a student has low efficacy, we know that their anxiety increases, and we know that anxiety decreases performance at extreme levels. So now the teacher was starting to feel overwhelmed. So she went to talk to her social worker about it. And the social worker said, but you know, mental health and well-being might affect the student's math grades. Trauma might affect the student's math grades. If this student had some sort of a trauma or a traumatic event that is still, you know, present and unresolved and creates mental health factors, this student might be getting bullied, and all of this might affect the student's math grade. So, you know, she went home and called her sister on the phone, and her sister's an engineer. And her sister said, you know, all of that's good, but, you know, don't forget that the structure of the desk, if the desk isn't comfortable enough, the student might not be learning because the desk's design is poor. Or, you know, maybe the quality of light in the classroom is affecting it, you know. We have these old fluorescent lights and things. Maybe the acoustics, you know. And what we come to find out is this idea of math grades seems to be infinitely connected to all sorts of different variables. And these variables are determined to be important based on the lens from which one or through which one looks at the world. The teachers look at the world through the teacher's lens, and they make inferences based on their variables, right? The psychologist has her lens, the social worker has his lens, and the engineer has his lens. And you know, the interesting thing is we just simply do not know everything that might be connected to math grades, right? We could have all of these other sort of effects, and we don't even know what they are. We can't even predict all of these other unknown variables, which are represented by these circles. Okay? So we just end up with an infinite amount of noise. Okay? Now, if we were, let's say that we were in a laboratory, we might be able to set up some sort of an experiment where we take, say, mental health and math grades, and I'll move it over this way, okay, where we take mental health and math grades in the laboratory, and we're able to create a barrier between all of these extraneous variables over here and this, okay? But unfortunately, in social science, we're stuck. We cannot isolate all of our participants in laboratories. Sometimes we do in psychology, but in a lot of the social sciences, we have to study things in their natural setting or in other ways that aren't quite as convenient. So here's the point. The point is that we will never be able to know exactly what causes math grades. But what we can do is we can look at these individual relationships, such as her interest in reading ability and in math grades. And we can look at this relationship and we can detect how much of a relationship there is. And we simply have to acknowledge that there are an infinite number of unknown variables. Furthermore, we have to acknowledge the fact that not only are all of these variables connected to math grades, but there might be a connection between desk structure and trauma or mental health. And we might actually be able to find a mathematical correlation. It doesn't make sense. Why would trauma and desk structure be correlated? But they may be. In 1978, there was a famous study that found a correlation between birth control and owning a toaster. That is to say, you could predict who used birth control by who used a toaster. Now, there was a third variable known as income, but it's still a very strange relationship. Or shark bites increase as ice cream consumption increases because they both occur in the summertime. Okay, so there are all sorts of strange ways in which all of these variables in the strange void are related. So don't concern yourselves too much with finding out everything or considering everything, because you cannot. But what you can do is look to the literature, see which of these variables have been examined before, report on them, do your study, and then merely report, I really don't know. All I know is what I found here in this setting with the sample I had. And as social science research continues, we go into the infinite void of the unknown and chip away and try to make meaning with what we have. And this is really what I wanted to communicate to you about extraneous variables. That is, those variables that are out there besides the ones that we are interested in. Sometimes we can name and label these variables because we know what they are, because we look through them with our lens. But other times, like these black circles, these variables are unknown. We don't know what's affecting. Okay? So the known variables are very context sticky, and the unknown variables are yet to be discovered. But the variables that we are studying are what we're interested in, and we have to acknowledge that we just don't know for sure. Sometimes we can isolate it in the laboratory. A lot of times we cannot. Thank you.